Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Starter for 10 here at Bookham Baptist Church. You're very welcome. This is something we do every week to just to introduce you a little bit to the life of the church and things that we're doing here. My name's Neil Casey. I'm going to be hosting this morning, and I have Steve Elms with me here this morning. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Neil. Good morning.
And I have Caroline with me. Good morning, Caroline.
Hello, good to be here.
And you're our online host this morning, aren't you? You'll be receiving things online from our various different people joining us online, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're with us online, particularly if you're with us live, please do comment, add your stories when we get to that, and let us know how you're feeling this morning.
Fantastic. So looking forward to hearing from you online. And this morning, we want to think about homecoming. And we'd love to hear your homecoming stories. What does that phrase homecoming conjure up for you? It might be songs or films or actual events of where you've come home. It's been, a tough day at the office or a tough day at work or whatever it is, and you just come home. How's that make you feel? So we'd love to hear those stories. Steve, have you got a homecoming story for us that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I've got lots of homecoming stories, but the one I wanted to share today was going home yesterday. So I was working here in the building, and I got home in the evening, and my family had gathered for a celebration of Sarah's birthday. Sarah's my wife, and so my daughter, my two sons were there, and their husband, girlfriends, but just coming into the warmth of the house, it was a cold day, and I just felt like it was just a little coming home. But the best bit about it was that my daughter came toward me and she gave me a hug, and she kind of pulled me into a long hug, and it was really important actually, because I, like a lot of us in the church at the moment, are carrying some really difficult and sad news that we're holding as a community. And Katrina read that, and it was just one of the most amazing hugs that was all about homecoming, and reminded me where I belonged and who I belonged to.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Reminding us of who we are, where we belong, who we belong to. That's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. Really appreciate it. Caroline, how about you? What's homecoming mean for you?
Yeah, well, I had a couple of songs that I was immediately thinking about, but I'll let other people who might want to comment mention their favourite songs. But I was taken back to a time when I was 17, and my parents were really keen for me to go to university. And I was going through a phase where I didn't really want to go, and I thought I'd just see whatever happened. Anyway, my parents persuaded me to go to a couple of university viewings, and one of them was in Chester. And I was born in North Wales, which is just across the border from Chester. I only lived there until I was about 2.5, and so I've got no conscious memory of it. Then we moved down here, and I'd grown up around here. But there was something, when we went back to Chester, it felt like this homecoming. And for me, that was just this absolute confirmation that that's where I should be. And I spent the next 3 years there. But there was it's really interesting that I don't have any, like I say, conscious memory, but there was this deep sense of connection with the place and the kind of peace and feeling that everything, of kind of contentment, I suppose, that everything, I'm where I was meant to be. Yeah.
Fantastic. Home, a place of peace and contentment. That's brilliant, isn't it? Well, for me, I've been thinking about this, and it's interesting. I obviously live near here in Fetcham, but a lot of my family live in the northwest of England, and so I spend quite a lot of time trekking up the motorway, the M40 and the M6, and I do that journey quite a lot. And something happens to me as I'm coming home around about High Wycombe on the M40, and it always happens to me. I have a kind of change of mood, a change of, a lightness in my being, because I realise that as I get to High Wycombe on the M40, I've only got about another hour until I'm actually home. And my mood lightens, and it actually gets me through the congestion on the M25, the stop-start, because I know that once I've got past High Wycombe, I am almost home, and it happens all the time. So I wonder if some of you have those kind of experiences too, or maybe like Steve, you experience home as being the place where you know where you're supposed to be, where you belong, and who loves you, and who you belong to, or a place of contentment and a place of peace. We'd love to hear your stories. Maybe coming home triggers a memory or a song for you, but do please share those stories with us online, and we'll hear from Caroline a little bit later in our starter for 10, and we'll be able to share those stories with you. But now we're going to hand over to the band, who you probably see behind me. We're going to hear from John, who's going to tell us a little bit about a song that's important to him, and then we're going to hear from the band. So, John and the band, over to you.
Thank you. Well, this morning I wanted to bring a new song. It's a song that was written by Phil Wickham last year. It's called Hymn of Heaven, and he wrote it last year as a response to the turmoil and questioning that's been triggered by this whole COVID pandemic. But today it's doubly appropriate, not only as a response to what the world has been through in the last year and a half and is still suffering, but also in response to today's topic of homecoming. As one of the verses says, "And on that day we join the resurrection and stand beside the heroes of the faith with one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain, forever he shall reign." And walk with him for all eternity. There will be a day when all will bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more, standing face to face with him who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord. And every prayer we prayed in desperation, the songs of faith we sang through doubt and fear, in the end we'll see that it was worth it when he returns to wipe away our tears. There will be a day when all will bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more, standing face to face with him who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord. And on that day we join the resurrection and stand beside the heroes of the faith, with one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Forever he shall reign. There will be a day when all will bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more, standing face to face with him who died
the hymn of heaven, with angels and the saints, we raise a mighty roar. Glory to our God, who gave us life beyond the grave. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. Thank you, band. A fantastic song. And really thinking about how that connects with what we're talking about in terms of home. And home being the place where you know where you belong, you know who you belong to. And for those of us who are part of the church, for those of us who follow Jesus, we know that that is home for us. It's the place where we belong, and it's the place where we know who we belong to. So thank you, John. Thank you, Ben, for bringing that to us this morning. Really great to have that song sung today. So, Caroline, have we had any input on our online chat from our online community this morning?
Yeah, we've had a couple of stories, and actually just what you're saying about home being that kind of place where you know you belong and that you're coming home to. We had two quite different stories. One was from Phil, who says, he starts it by saying, my story's weird. So he then says, after 6 months hitchhiking around America after uni, I arrived home to find my parents had cleared my bedroom and redecorated. I left home and came back to a hotel. So there was that sense of perhaps not coming back to what he quite expected or was familiar. But then on the other hand, we've got Dawn, who's also from North Wales, and she tells this lovely sort of, her perspective, which is that coming home is when you reach the A5 and see those snow-topped mountains and know that true peace of being with those who love you unconditionally, and that's only 30 minutes away.
Fantastic. Knowing that true peace of being with those who love you unconditionally, and it's only a few minutes away. That is just a lovely image, isn't it, for us this morning? So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Caroline, for sharing those. Thank you for sharing your stories. There's still opportunity to contribute, and we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to turn to Steve now. Steve, we have a regular slot, don't we, in our starter for 10, which we call High Five. And we have a church service coming up a little bit later this morning. You're going to be speaking at that service. So why don't you give us a little sneak preview in our High Five slot this morning about what you're going to be sharing with us?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. This theme of homecoming is a really rich one. It seems to connect with some of our deepest longings and helps us to think about belonging. Who we belong to, where we belong. And often home seems to be more about people and community than it does bricks and mortar. But it's a deep, deep theme, and one that does get picked up in a lot of songs. I mentioned a couple in the Friday Bulletin which showed my age, like, actually I was thinking of another one, Take Me Home Country Road. I didn't mention that one, but you've got Homeward Bound by Simon & Garfunkel, but I was talking to, my son says something more contemporary, and Stefan said, yeah, there's a song by Muse called Something Human, and he played it to me. And again, it was that just sense of a journey homeward, and deep, deep longings being kind of evoked just by that journey. So we're into kind of really rich ground here. If you get into the story of the Bible, you'd find that the theme of homecoming is very much there, rooted very deeply. It comes out in lots of ways. One of the ways in which it comes out in a very kind of direct way is in a story that Jesus told about a son, one of two brothers who asked his dad for his inheritance early, wasn't wanting to wait for him to die, and took half his inheritance and went off to a far-off country where he squandered the whole lot, just wasted it completely, and then found himself in a very low place, actually working for a farmer, feeding pigs. And he got to a point where he said to himself, spoke to himself, and said, what am I doing here? My father's servants have a better life than I do. I should go home. And so he makes this journey home. And there's this amazing scene that Jesus kind of paints for us very beautifully of the father who's been kind of every day waiting, looking for his son to come home. And he runs down the road, and he puts his arms around his lad, who is disheveled, is in the most awful state. And he puts a ring on his finger, a lovely robe, and throws the party of parties to welcome him home. And this story is meant to convey to us how it is with God and us, that actually all of us are estranged in our far-off land, carrying deep longings for home and waiting to discover that our true home is with the one who made us and gave us life. So coming home is coming home to our Creator. And that's beautiful. And what I love about that story is the incredibly effusive welcome, the no-holds-barred welcome of the Father as he wraps his arms around his Son. And we're going to explore that a little bit today. We're going to explore that theme of homecoming as we find it in another Bible story, and what we might learn about God in his welcome, his coming to us, meeting us, and bringing us home to himself. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of where we're headed in the service later.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. And that story is of the son coming home. It's a fantastic story. And I love that image of the father who has been waiting, every day waiting, expectant to see his son. And he sees him in the distance, doesn't he? And he just runs. He just runs. And that image of the Father running towards us with his arms open wide, throwing his arms around us, giving us a big hug, saying, welcome home.
Yeah.
Welcome home.
That's right.
And that's the invitation to all of us, isn't it? Welcome home. There's an invitation here. The Father has got his arms open, wanting to give us a big hug. It's a beautiful, beautiful image. Thank you for sharing that. Well, what resonated for you? What kind of lives with you from what Steve was saying, Caroline?
Yeah, similarly, that story of what we call the prodigal son is so powerful, and one that I just keep returning to. It's like I never get beyond it, It's something which is, in some ways, extremely relatable. There's one of my favourite old hymns is called "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing," and it's got a phrase in it which talks about, it's a prayer really, bind my wandering heart to thee. And I remember the first time I heard that, I thought, oh, maybe it's not just me. Maybe it's not just me who has this wandering heart. And I've come to realise it's kind of the human condition that we wander away from our true home. But I've also got, because that story is so profound and means so much to me personally, I've got a painting in my office, in my study, which is by Charlie Mackesy, who is famous for other kind of illustrations more recently. But he did this original drawing of the father it's actually a daughter in his arms. And the daughter, it looks almost lifeless. She's really kind of dishevelled. And it's just that prompt to me all the time whenever I see it to return, to come home, and that the father's there waiting. So, yeah, that's probably gabbling on too much, but
brilliant.
Homecoming is important, isn't it?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, we've had a theme this morning, haven't we? Home is being that place where you belong and you know who you belong to. And there is an invitation to all of us to come home to the Father who is standing there with his arms open wide, wanting to give us a big hug and to say, welcome home. If you've been inspired by what we've shared this morning in Starter for 10, do come and join us in a few minutes' time. We have our church service here this morning at Bookham Baptist starting in about 15 minutes or so. So if you're just around the corner, come and join us. You're always welcome to join us online and connect with us through our website and our Facebook pages. And on our YouTube channel, we'll have lots of videos, particularly of the things that Steve will be sharing and others share here, So do join us on our YouTube channel to hear more of what Steve will be sharing this morning.
It might be worth mentioning, Neil, that at 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
the sermon that will unpack what I was just beginning to talk about will be live streamed, won't it,
Yeah.
on our YouTube channel.
So do join us there. Again, just connect to our YouTube channel around about 11 o'clock and you'll able to hear Steve live. But this church is a place where you're very welcome. There's an invitation for you to find this to be the place where you belong and find the person who you belong to here at Bookham Baptist Church. So thank you for joining us for Starter for 10. We'd love to see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.